Good morning, good morning, good morning, and happy Taco Tuesday, says Peter Mizulik. I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler, and Peter has made his way into the chat here this morning. And it is Tuesday. It is the episode number 16, and you're watching Inside the Game, the podcast here on the National Soccer Network. We're live right now on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Roku. I'm sorry, X. We're live on X, not just Twitter, whatever. And hey, a couple things this morning, and Nathan, we're 16 shows in, so we're starting to get pretty good at this on some level. I've got to give you a golf clap. And the reason why is you are in charge of our YouTube shorts, TikTok shorts. That's been your role now for the better part of a couple months, and you do a fantastic job with that. Well worth the $0 I pay you. But I'm just kidding.
He pays me in gum.
Bubble gum, right? He likes the different flavors of Big League Chew, right? But and anyways, on a different note, I just want to there's been two moments in this show where you have, on some level, taken what I have said and turned it into a funny meme, whatever you want to call it, through TikTok, right? A short. Yesterday, I kind of went on a little bit of a rant about cheeseburgers and how we're screwing with those. I went on a rant about how, Diet
I don't know
Coke,
what blackberry ketchup
Diet
is.
Coke still has sugar in it. And I just got to say, like, the way the creativity that you have in regards to putting those videos together has been fun to watch. And yesterday was great. I got home last night from another live event that I had to go be a part of, and I'm just sitting on the couch. The last time I was sitting on the couch after a long day, and there it was. It was right there. This great. I don't know if you can even pull it up, because if you were watching yesterday, you heard what I had to say and my madness in the moment.
You came out firing.
I did. I'm like, listen here, America.
You were mad at America, and I could tell that you've run into these common misconceptions many times before.
I almost feel like with what we're doing, that I almost feel like on some level it's my responsibility as a type 2 diabetic that I need to go to Congress and say that it's almost, if you're going to serve pop in an establishment, that you should have some form of a sugar-free option on your menu. And because when I go to a restaurant and they don't have sugar-free pop, I get soda water. Now, soda water is not terrible. For me, it's just different than water. Water is great, but I've always been that person that needs something else with when I'm drinking, when I'm eating food. I've never been someone that would ever just I'm gonna have beer when I'm eating a burger. I've never been that casual kind of drinker in that regard. So it's always been like a pop or whatever. So yeah, I almost feel like I need to go to Congress and be like, hey, if as an establishment is serving soft drinks, it must be a requirement under the law to include, especially considering that type 2 diabetes right now is like literally the fastest growing, like, medical, whatever you want to call it, in the world. I mean, so it's not like it's an uncommon thing. So
yeah. The other thing is, like, there's this conception too that people see diet on the front, and so automatically they think like for some reason it's the healthier alternative to what the normal one is, but not really, because you're more just like drinking a science lab. You're just drinking other chemicals as opposed to drinking this, that, or the other thing. So I don't, your passion about it was, I think, the funniest part. And so that just automatically reminded me with being a Family Guy fan all these years, about the one time Peter got a job just telling the world what grinded his gears every night on the news. So that was his segment. And that in a lot of ways kind of reminded me of that. So literally as you're screaming at the screen, I'm like, I got a good meme for this one. This one is good. But I do have it pulled up, by the way, if you want to show the people.
Oh yeah, let's show this away here. Here it comes.
Also got the Tom and Jerry bit in there.
The first questions I asked, now being that I'm a diabetic, is, do you guys have sugar-free pop? And we've got Diet Coke. America. I want you to hear me loud and clear. Okay? Diet Coke has sugar in it.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Okay, so that's what I want to make sure I put out there. That is Diet Coke. It's not good for me as a diabetic. That's number one, America.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Number two, can we stop? Can we stop screwing with cheeseburgers? That you want to put some barbecue sauce on your burger? That's fine every once in a while. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But why the hell would put blackberry? What the hell is blackberry ketchup?
You know what really grinds my gears? You, America.
And one of the first questions I asked now, being that
I'm a diabetic,
is
gosh, hold on,
I got rid of it, but that oh my gosh!
You, America.
Peter goes, look at cereal boxes here in the U.S. and European boxes do not have cartoons on the boxes or bright colors on or the artificial crap either. I don't want to get into like the whole like that is a whole nother show that you could watch probably on the Daily Wire, CNN, Fox News, something like that. But I think we're good. But no, I agree with what you're saying, Peter, on some level. But
yeah,
it's really funny. And if you haven't subscribed to us on TikTok, you need to, I think it's Nat Soccer TV on TikTok as well. So go check that out. It's funny. But which leads me into today, growth is when you start talking about scaling and growing your business, there's a lot of challenges that come with that. One is personnel, finding time in the day. There's a lot of things that go into it. And when we were just kind of Michigan Soccer Network, it was really easy for me to not say find time, but to stay focused on target here in Michigan, right? Go get the games here, do this, do that. There's a lot of things that we focused on in Michigan, the high school game, the youth game, but we really, again, just it's much easier to focus in one area than 50 other areas, right? So, so part of our growth has been to obviously partner with leagues. We announced that here earlier this week, and last week talked about this new WPSL agreement, and we've got a whole lot more coming down the pipeline. And part of our growth model has been about our studio, a new studio that we're in the process of finalizing, and a number of things. And the level of detail, that goes into all this, the capital that is needed for all this, right? It's something that, to be fair, I don't know if you even realize what you need until you're in it, right? Hundreds and thousands of dollars and millions of dollars to pull this thing together. And there's a lot of question marks in regards to that. We're building these rooms that are designed for commentators to sit in, and call games. And so it's just been this process of, and what really grinds my gears without going into is the fact that, oftentimes, you are, you're dealing with people like me who are in the sales environment, who are trying to sell you on why we should do business with them, right? And vice versa. And part of that process is the quoting and all other kind of stuff. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I've used some in the earlier days of my selling, I used, different closing tactics that would be geared towards, I would say, not strong arming, but this using tactics that would I wanted them to get in or get out, right? That was kind of the way, right? And it's not a good way to do it, to be fair, right? I've learned that in this world that I don't need 1 million people to work with me. I just need a handful of people to work with me, right? If I can go find those handful who are like willing to have the conversation and listen to what we have to say, then ultimately those are the better people to work with, the better businesses to work with, because they believe in what you're doing. I don't need to work with someone who doesn't believe in what I'm doing, right? And that's what I would tell any salesperson or any consultant that ever works for us in the history of mankind, is that you don't need to go find 200 people. You need to go find 20. Go find your 20 and make those 20 the best 20 they could possibly be. And then from there, you find the next 20. But you don't need to go find 200 and try to make the. So it's one of those things where I don't like that tactic, and it's not a tactic that I believe in. And so my message to anybody out there who wants to sell me or sell anyone for that matter is don't do that, right? There's a reason why someone may or may not want to do business with you. There's a reason why someone might not have the time to talk with you right now. And of course, I'm a very persistent salesperson too, Nathan. I'll be the first one to tell you. Until someone tells me no, I will call you every single day. I will bother you. You know what I mean? And to be fair, in probably 90% of the cases where I talk with someone, they said, John, if you hadn't kept calling me, I never would have done business with you. You know what I mean? Your persistence was really good. So I think that's something. And to be fair, that isn't something that just applies to sales. That applies to everything, right? We talk about soccer for a second. I can tell you right now that there were players out there that when it came to the high school game were all over me as a coach. They bothered me about every possible detail. But they're the players that wanted it the most because they were in my face the most. Right? And there were players out there that were never in my face, and they were probably way more talented than the player that was in my face. But they didn't show it. You want to go out and get recruited by a college coach? I'm not telling you that you should go out there and berate a college coach so much to the point that they're annoyed by you. But if you want that, you got to go get it. What does that mean? You got to follow up. You got to be like, hey, coach, I know you're busy. Yeah, I know this, but keep at it. Persistence, persistence, persistence. If you do that, right? And I'm sure on some level, because you were just talking here this morning about kind of like mentoring a number of young commentators. And I would imagine on some level, you're saying, don't forget what you're trying to do. Right. I know you're hearing no's. I know you're hearing these opportunities that might not be coming your way, but don't let that be a deterrent. Keep going, right? Whether that means you have to go out there and you have to keep hitting the same place. Hey, I know you said no to me. I know. And honestly, I would be saying right back to anyone that said no to me, I know you said no. I appreciate you telling me no. But my goal is for the opportunity. So all I'm asking for you is that instead of saying no permanently, give me a chance down the road to prove you that I can do this. So keep going. Let them keep the door open, right? And so, but I don't want to belabor this any longer because then we have a conversation today that we want to get into. But I think it's important that in today's world, especially when we don't have as much time to do things. That we have to understand that people are people, the human beings are human beings, right? We know this about ourselves, and you can't attack people. And more importantly, if you don't have the time, it's okay to say to people you don't have the time. And on the flip side of that, if you're a business, don't try to strong arm people into making decisions with you. It just doesn't. It's not good, and that's not the kind of customer you want, anyways. The one that feels guilty enough to say yes to you, and now down the road they're thinking that you robbed them. It's not the way to go.
I think the hardest thing is not burning bridges, to be completely honest with you. I think people have struggles with that, especially with the world we live in now and how easy it is to just connect with everybody and anybody. And the truth is that once you start burning bridges, all of a sudden you're automatically going to sever a lot of opportunities that you would have had in front of you. So I'll start right there because it's you could have easily cut bait with me. I think about that in the past too, because there was a stretch there, especially with baseball and a lot of other stuff and, transitioning from here to there, that I wasn't available for certain things, but you kept with it. You kept coming back. And obviously it's been pretty fruitful this fall and obviously into the winter and what the spring is going to be, which is just kind of beyond what I would have even imagined in terms of the amount of games and what we're planning on doing. So that's the one thing is I think sometimes people burn bridges just because they think they really don't have to hold on to a certain bridge or a connection. And that I'm going to tell you right now, that's always going to come back to bite you, always, especially in our field. But it 100%. Was you made reference to this, the conversation I was having with one of my younger broadcasters yesterday. And the biggest reason why I use like my TikTok in particular, which is why I'm so thankful that it's actually back, that it didn't get banned, was I'm using it a lot of ways in a networking capacity, kind of as that kind of tool. Yeah, I want to post the cool highlights, the fun videos, the behind the scenes, all that other stuff. That's fun. I like getting people's eyes on my page. But what I really want to do is kind of build this growing network of broadcasters, younger broadcasters, older broadcasters, so that I can essentially have this pool of people that just know my name, right? So that my name is known and it's on the list in multiple different places. But I was having this talk with, again, one of the kids that I mentor yesterday, and he's essentially my understudy. Like he's like my number 2, if you will. I mean, he works up north in Traverse City. That was a place I was at before. He's one of the main voices at Cornerstone University. They typically bring him on for more. I don't know if it's because my price tag is a little bit higher than what it used to be, but they certainly bring him on for a lot of stuff. So in a lot of the places I'm at, he's at. And it's because of, obviously the work that I've been able to put in to get him there. But he's got his own things too. But he was getting really frustrated about not getting jobs. And the toughest thing for young broadcasters, and you and I always chat about, we want to shine a light on the game. We also want to shine a light on our industry too, because we want to give you an understanding. Again, if you're going to listen to us and watch us and try to understand who we are before we launch into interviewing this person or that person, I think it's important to know this stuff about who we are and what we do. But he's getting really frustrated. He's like, I'm sending out these 8 million job applications, these 8 million emails. I'm sick of working my day job, which, I mean, I nearly worked my day job for a decade. I hated it. And there were a few things that I went over with him. And the first biggest thing that we were just talking about that I think is a step he's missing isn't just the networking part. Because networking isn't just a one-time conversation. And I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding there in terms of what actual networking is. Because you just mentioned it, JT. Even if you can't get through to someone on the first try, and again, sales, networking, I think it's all communication with people. It all kind of falls into the same category. You can't just give up. And if you're going to network with people in really high positions, it's not just a one-time conversation. You have to consistently be in their ear in one little way or the other, right? The whole saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil or whatever it is. I mean, like there's this laundry list of sayings that will always remain true, and that's one of them. So the importance of not just having a one-time conversation with someone and telling them what you want to do and everything, but it's the consistency aspect of all of it that's going to end up getting you the results that you want to see. So that was my first biggest thing to him. And I don't know if you have any particular opinions on that, but that's the way in my mind that networking is effective, right? It's not just a one-time thing. Hey, how are you doing? It should be a consistent thing throughout a certain stretch of time, and being open to the different possibilities of what that delivers to you. I don't know. What do you feel about that?
I mean, networking obviously is one of the most important things that that you can do in today's world. Because everybody, I think we always say this, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And if I didn't have relationships with people 10 years ago, it wouldn't have resulted into what I'm doing today. Right. So you cannot put to be fair, I don't think you can even put a number on how important networking is. Right. Right. You just can't.
Right. And then it's not just, yeah.
Go ahead.
And a lot of it's cold calling too. I've noticed that in terms of all the effective ways of actually getting through to people, that in my mind is the most effective way of going about it. It's not necessarily, here's the thing, when a job opens and everybody wants to be your best friend, like that is the time that everybody's in your inbox, everybody's hitting you up, everybody wants something from you. So I guess I'll ask you this, since we're in the middle of, and I say we as the National Soccer Network, we're in the middle of hiring 1 billion people. But I have to think that there is at least some level of, maybe not bias, but there's some level of leaning towards people that you already know. If there's someone that you've already done work with in the past and they want to continue to work with you and do different things, or someone else that name-wise in the industry, it's a little bit of favoritism that goes towards those people because they have already built.
I apologize. I might have accidentally kicked Nathan out of the studio on accident. So he's gonna come back in here in a moment. So I was trying to kick out something else on the back end, and ultimately, so I apologize to those of you who are watching right now on YouTube. I'm sure he'll come back in here in a moment. But there he is. Yeah, that was me, dude. You had your screen was still, your TikTok screen was still in the green room, so I kicked it and it kicked you both out. So it really grinds my gears.
You know what grinds my gears? When you stop the show at 20 minutes, that grinds my gears. I'm in the middle of making a point over here, and you're like, all right, that's enough of that.
Go ahead.
Anyways, I imagine there's a hair of favoritism or some sort of stuff like that to people who actually have some sort of basic connection with you through this process. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yes and no. You're not wrong. I mean, obviously, there are people that we're gonna, I guess, kind of lean on, right? And I think when it comes to this, there are people who are currently within our network of what we've been doing and within our company that will get opportunities first, right? The bigger and the better opportunities, right? They'll have a chance to evolve and to go up in the whole hierarchy of things within the organization. So that to me is probably first and foremost. But no, because we need so many people that I'm not in a position where I can even really say that to 100% certainty, like, oh yeah, that's the person, or we're gonna go with that person. I mean, we've had people along the path, and before I even met you, Nathan, there was a number of other commentators that worked within our organization that were asking for similar roles that you're currently doing, and those were roles at the time I wasn't prepared to offer them. And then obviously as we started to grow, it made sense for us to offer that to now someone who is in the role and ready to go. Those people actually left because I wasn't willing to give them that role right then and there. You know what I mean? And that's the thing I think is important too. I've had commentators who've come in here and they've really excelled. And then because again, closed-mindedness or whatever you want to call it, they stepped away. And what I told them when they were stepping away was, don't close the door, don't burn a bridge. Because in my position right now, we need a ton of people. And why would you step away from something when you could? So it's very strange sometimes how people interact and react when it comes to things. And to be fair, I think a lot of that's youth. I think it's inexperience in life. And kind of putting down like drawing a line in the sand and saying, hey, if you don't do this, I'm not gonna. Okay, well then and to be fair. When you burn a bridge with me, and I think this is important because I think that there might be this in any scenario too, Nathan, when you think about like, okay, if someone were to burn, make you upset or frustrated or say something to you that would turn you away. I'm not a believer that, first off, I don't want to have any hate in my heart. So I don't hate anybody. I don't, I might dislike people. I think it's okay to dislike something from that somebody does or how they interact. I think it's okay. The problem is that we have too much hate in this world. I hate this. I hate that. No, I don't hate it. I dislike it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
There's so many different vast, interpretations of what someone and it's crazy because me and you could watch the same thing and our interpretation of that same thing is vastly different, right? And then you take that and multiply that by millions of people. Could you just imagine the interpretations of what someone thinks or doesn't think? And now we're going to use the word that I hate. No, I just like it. I don't like it. I don't agree with you,
or don't understand it,
or I don't understand. That is right now the fundamental problem in this country is that because we don't agree, it turns into hate. And that's not how it should be. And inexperience and youth are things like that will tend to continue to allow those types of things from happening. And then obviously there's another one in there, which is unfortunately is arrogance. That will also cause that to be a case too. Ignorance is in there too. So you know, so I know that on some level answers your question. I just,
it does.
I feel like if any commentator out there is looking to do this on a professional level, then you cannot close any doors.
No.
You can't. If the business is going to close the door, if the production company is going to close the door,
yes,
it's fine. But you can't close the door. Now, obviously, what I would say is this: there's probably exceptions to that. If the company is, you know, integrity and or, you know, I mean, you don't believe in, you know, there's certain things that I would say, okay, if it's a personal type thing where, you know, then of course, but that would be the only exception.
And so the thing that frustrates me the most, and again, we both have people I think that we can imagine in this conversation which fit this bill, but the unwillingness to make versatility the center focus for people who are in this industry is something that blows my mind. Because to shut off opportunities that are in front of you because they're not quite, that's not right where I want it. Or the other thing that drives me nuts, it's not the sport that I like.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to shut off an opportunity to be on TV, to be on radio, to have your face out there, to grow your brand, to do all these other things. Oh, and by the way, maybe fall in love with something different. Okay, and the thing is I'll never sit up here and say that I love soccer as much as, you know, some of the other sports. And the truth is I'm sure there's some people that are watching this show right now that have been able to sniff out that I'm not necessarily the biggest soccer guy in the world. And I would hope that if you've been, you know, following any of my commentary or watching any of my games, there's probably a few little things that you hear in there that you're like, okay, well, this guy, Jimmy, man, what are you doing? Stop hitting that snooze button. What's up, Peter? These guys. Anyways, I'm sure you've been able to sniff out at some point that I'm not the biggest soccer guy in the world. But I will never, you know, so long as I am doing this job, I will never. And I even told you this, and I remember having a kind of a personal phone call conversation with you when the conversation of transitioning initially came about, you know, from Michigan Soccer Network to National Soccer Network. The original conversation was you wanted me to move down to Detroit. You wanted me to move over there. And, you know, obviously because of, you know, some other opportunities for me professionally over here and some other things, we've been able to work things out. But I remember you know, early on kind of talking to me about, you know, you're like, I know why you want to work for this company. And I was like, well, why? You know, go ahead and tell me why, because I have an understanding as to why, but you tell me. And you're like, well, you want to call games, you want to quit your day job, and you want to do this full time. You don't want to have to go slice head cheese for 80-year-old women anymore with an apron on. And I'm like, yeah, that's fairly accurate. But you're also like, but soccer isn't your favorite sport ever, right? So I want to be the kind of boss. I want to be this kind of situation where we can bring you on and have you do this, obviously to the capacity that I'm doing, still have the flexibility to do all those other things. But that goes back to the importance of, in my mind, you can't, if there is a good opportunity in front of you that pays and someone that's trustworthy, you can't shut off opportunities. And when people ask me, you know, again, what's your favorite sport? What's your dream job? What would you rather just do one team? My answer is always no. I would never want to just close myself off to just one thing and one thing only, because I just don't think that's realistic. But I think a lot of this goes back to, you know, when we talk about what kind of reinforcement is the best reinforcement for broadcasters, the kind of people that you're looking to get reinforcement from oftentimes are not the people that are immediately around you. And sometimes those people that are immediately around you can get you feeling like you are maybe a couple of steps above whatever level it is that is giving you the opportunities. So that would be my other advice to people is be open to high school, be open to NAIA, be open to club, be open to youth sports. Like that's kind of our mission here on NSN. And maybe that doesn't sit right with certain people because they think they should be at higher levels than what they're at. But that's the biggest thing for me, at least personally. You can't survive in this industry, in this realm, without valuing versatility. You got to be able to do everything, because at the end of the day, that's only going to make you a more well-rounded individual. But as we always talk about, JT, like, we deal with ego all the time, but that's going to be the one thing, at least in my mind, if young broadcasters, any media talent out there, and I know we're hiring a bunch of people, and obviously talent is going to be a big part of that. If you assume that you are at that higher level without actually being at that higher level, you're wrong. And here's the thing that grinds my gears before I transition into my next point here. There is nothing that I despise more. Nothing. Than someone being like, so-and-so is good enough to be here. No, they're not. Because they're not there. I remember we had a public address announcer when I was in college. And by the way, 100% accurate that he could be at those higher levels. But I remember people talking about how this guy could be at the Big House. This guy could be at Spartan Stadium. He could be at Ford Field. He could be anywhere else doing this job. But for some reason, he likes it here. That's why he's staying here. But he's good enough to be there. No, he's not. Because he's not there. And so my issue is with media talent sometimes is this assumption, I'm good enough for X, but you're not there. So that's where the proving ground comes in accepting opportunities that come to you in order to prove that you're worthy for that level. I think the whole ego thing is a good thing to have, but I think if it's too much, that can sometimes push you away from potential real opportunities. So that's another big thing.
Say I disagree. I mean, I disagree with you to some extent, and here's the reason why I say that. Obviously, if we look at Michigan and the pinnacle of just state of Michigan, the pinnacle of being a public address announcer in the state of Michigan, right? Again, pinnacle. All right, I'm thinking of potentially 5 or 6 opportunities, right? We can talk Ford Field, right? That's one, right? We talk about Little Caesars Arena. That's another one. Comerica Park. That's another one. So those are 3. And then you go, okay, what's the fourth one? The Big House, Michigan, right? That's number 4, right? And then you can start going from there and going, okay, well, then it's Michigan State. Then it's, and I'm not putting those in any specific order. I mean, any one of those could be, your pinnacle. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for that's 5 places. You can't tell me that there aren't 30 public address announcers in Michigan that could be equally good, if not better, than the people who are currently doing it in those places. So what I mean by that, now, ego aside, there are people out there that have the chops to do it. And for whatever reason, not knowing somebody, not the right, whatever it might be, connections, networking, whatever it might be, aren't in those positions. Okay, so I do agree with you. And ego is it can be a lot of things in a lot of different scenarios. But I don't think there's anything wrong with someone being acknowledged of the fact that they could be there, right, if that other person wasn't there.
Right.
And like a perfect example. Again, think about this as well. For every NBA basketball team, for every NFL football team, for every Major League Baseball team, there is a radio play-by-play, right? So 32 NFL football teams, that's 32 play-by-plays, right? Analysts, whatever you want to call it, but 32 of them. We can't. I can guarantee you, there's more than 32 other people outside of the NFL who are currently doing it on the radio that are equally as good, if not better, than that person currently sitting in the chair. They just, Dan Miller's been doing it for 20 years here in Michigan, right? 20 plus years. So he is really good. He's really good. You know, so I just want to make that point. I don't disagree with you, and I think that there's a lot of people out there that'll use that. Oh my God, you could totally be doing it at the next level. Well, but you're not. So
to kind of illustrate exactly what I'm talking about, my example is, you know, like I do games at the professional level in baseball. For me to just be like, high school and club soccer, no thanks. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I'm a step above that. So that's kind of where where I'm trying to illustrate this point.
Oh, you're saying you're too big for that game, is what you're saying.
Yes. That's too big for the spot. Different. Right. I'm too big for youth sports. I'm up here. You guys are down here. You know, I'm gonna go do this other thing. So that's one of my biggest issues. And I've run into that with a couple of the kids, you know, in the past. They're like, well, you know, I get like community college games. Like, I feel like I should be. I'm like, you get community college games. Go do the best freaking community college game you've ever called in your life. Put that stuff together. And then that comes up to my other point. So the third leg of this conversation, right? The first one was mentality around the day job, right? You got to get around this constant negative energy because it's just going to drain you of everything. The second one is consistent networking, right? Young broadcasters, young media people, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and you have to be consistent, right? You have to get on people about more opportunities. And of course, I've been in your ear. I'm sure I've annoyed you about doing certain things and going certain places where you're like, I didn't think it was a good idea. You know, you got to drive through over, you know, to Detroit 2+ hours through the snow and ice. And I'm like, JT, like I'll sleep, you know, at my girlfriend's parents' house if it means I get to call 2-3 extra games for you, you know, so be the squeaky wheel. The other thing that I would say that's extremely important is social media and social media outreach. And so I wanted to show you guys kind of a look at exactly what I do in terms of my social media outreach, because this is a really, I guess, a really simple thing to do that can really kind of take you to the next level. And so this is, I don't know, can you see it on the screen right now? You got it?
I do. Yep. I'm going to put it in right now.
You do? Okay. So this is my link tree. So everything that I have is all packaged up into one place, right? So if I'm reaching out to people, if I'm networking myself, if I want to reach out to anyone and claim that I'm a member of your network or I want to talk to them, this is where all of that is categorized. You know, so even in the clips that I post on my personal social media account, you can find all of it at the very top of my bio in the link. You know, so this is what they call Linktree. At the top, just a quick description: sports broadcaster, podcast producer based out of Grand Rapids. And everything else below that, you got demos and social media. You have the Road to Detroit podcast, won a couple awards with that one as a producer. Obviously, up here, you have our network, and you know, you can find everything there. I believe our YouTube page is linked to that. Right here, we have our website, and then down here, we have our social media pages, right? So I still call it Twitter on here. I guess I can change it to X. I don't know, but you got Twitter, you got TikTok, as well as you have my own personal YouTube. So if you do be able to, and it's important because when you're talking about applying for jobs and when you're talking about connecting with people and getting them to know who you are, and maybe you can tell me from a personal perspective, because if I were to email you with this, what you would think. The biggest thing, how do you make stuff easily accessible right away to someone you're sending it to? Not only that, easily accessible, easy to find, all right in front of you. And so when I was chatting with him yesterday, one of the things that he has is he has a website and he has demos and YouTube, but they're all kind of disjointed, right? They're all kind of spread out all over the place. They're not in one place. He knows he has them, but in order to connect with people and get people to look at his stuff, he has to send them all differently. So this was my recommendation, like put it all in one place. I guess you as an employer, if I were to reach out with you with that, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you want something that's simple and right in front of you? What are you looking for? Because in my opinion, if there is no social media outreach, and here's my biggest thing, my biggest thing. And I think it's one of the reasons why when we talk about content creation, like we started off with this morning, with the Family Guy video and everything, you saw that I enjoyed doing that, right? So you brought me on to do content creation, but it wasn't just that. right? When we talk about TikTok in particular, I was actually kind of sad when it was going to go away. I was a little upset. Now, I wasn't going to get on and cry and have an emotional breakdown and everything, because that's just not the person I am. Social media, it's a necessary evil in my mind. It's something that has to be done, but it's something I don't necessarily want to do. But the reason why it was so hard on me, at least in particular, when it was going to go, wasn't because of the followers or the attention or the likes. It was because of the connections. It was because of all that stuff that I earned through TikTok, whether it be my base, my following, the professional connections, but also it was the job opportunities. It's nuts to think about. And I was explaining this to him yesterday. If it wasn't for TikTok, if it wasn't for me live streaming my games or doing any of that other stuff, I would not be talking into my screen right now. I would not be talking to you. I would probably not be doing content creation every day. I certainly wouldn't be calling as many games as I am. And it's all because of the work that I put into the social media side and getting my face out there more consistently. Now, did I strike lightning in a bottle a couple of times with the videos that I had? Yes. I mean, obviously, the Masters video into the stratosphere. I mean, I think like 9 million people saw it across different social media platforms. I took a video of our new locker room that got like 40,000 views. There were a few that popped off, but the only reason why I was in that spot was because of my willingness to do all of that stuff on the other side and to let people know who I am and show them my face and do all of those other things. I mean, what is your opinion on the social media and getting your face out there and creating content? Because that's an aspect of the job that I personally, JT, I don't enjoy. And people think that I do because they watch my TikTok videos and you're like, well, you're clearly having fun doing this. I'm doing it because in a lot of ways it's necessary, because people need to see my face. They need to hear my voice. They need to know what I do. They need to see my work, because if they don't, really from an entertainment perspective, I can't really relate to them in that next level. And it's going to be hard for them to look at me and go like, yeah, you're someone I want to work for my company. Where do you fall on all of that? Because I think it's the most, if not the most, the second most, but it's one of the most important aspects of anything we do.
Yeah, I think that first off, it's a necessary evil in 2025, right? If you're not doing it, then you're not going to be seen, right? And you talk about it, you mentioned it. Like, had I not seen you doing the 2023 Girls State Cup Finals at Legacy Sports Center in Brighton, I wouldn't have reached out to you, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. You were on a TikTok live at that event. And I think I might have seen you on other things, but I think you're probably doing a baseball game or something. And now I'm seeing you doing a soccer game. And okay, that's really cool, especially since at that time we were we're negotiating with the MSYSA in regards to that event specifically. So that was had you not done that, we wouldn't. Maybe we connect, but maybe it's not to the extent that we are now. So yeah, I mean, we've got, to be fair, if you're going to join NSN, it's part of the package, right? You need to be doing everything you can to promote what you're doing and what we're doing, right? So if you're not willing to do that, then guess what? You're not going to have longevity in this industry. The great thing about this for me, and the reason why I don't do as much of it, is because I'm doing it for the company all the time. And to be fair, I would much rather hire someone to just literally follow me around like the Kardashians and just, film me all the time. And then they do it, I mean, that would be
right,
like the best case scenario. And at some point in time here over the next, I would say 1 to 3 months, I will hire someone that their sole job is to literally follow me around and just post social media about me and what I'm doing each and every day. So I just don't have the time. I'm doing a million things. And if I don't grow personally in my professional world, I'm, from like the ESPN and whatever, that, okay, I still have all this. Right. So I'm not like hurting. But I understand why there's a need for it. Right. You want to get yourself out there and going viral. I mean, aside the Hawk Tua thing, I think it's important to talk about that for a second, right? And the reason I want to mention is because we're talking about somebody who literally on a drunken Saturday says something stupid on somebody else's social media, by the way, wasn't even on her social media, says something completely stupid that we can all get a laugh out of and chuckle, not serious at all. And look what that's turned into for her. You know what I mean? Like, and she wasn't doing it intentionally, So timing, right place at the right time. And that goes both ways, by the way. It's not like it's just like, well, I say something stupid, it turns into something funny, and now we all get a laugh out of it, and I have a career. It could also go the opposite direction, where you're walking in a park and you could tell someone to stop walking their dog without a leash on. Next thing you know, you're getting fired from your job. Like, I mean, like, it goes both ways,
Right.
So,
yeah,
so I going viral for the right reason, and I wouldn't even say that what she did was the right reason, but that's the world we live in today. The dumbest shit will get you in front of millions of people. And I mean, you've got these TikTokers, all they do, they go into Walmarts and they fake fart, and they get millions of views. I mean, first off, it's insane to me that that's even a thing that people actually care about watching. But yet here I am on a Saturday night at midnight in my bed, and I'm happening to watch that dumb thing come across my TikTok feed. And what do? I watch for 5 seconds longer than I should. And the next thing you know, I've got 300 of those damn farting things in my For You page. So it's like, and you're like, why are these here? Because I literally watched it for 5 seconds longer than I should have, or whatever that the damn algorithm is. So yes, that is important.
You have to make yourself available to people too. And it's fascinating to me that this capability is available to certain people that just refuse to use it, because there used to be a day, and I remember Dan Miller talking about this, and I was at the Great Lakes broadcasting conference. They have it every year at Ford Field. All the different high schools go. It's really cool. It's a really nice opportunity to be able to network with people and talk with people. But I remember Dan Miller, radio voice of the Lions, being up there and talking about when he was trying to get into this. He used to have to burn CDs with his tape on it. And I mean, like, physically mail these things, right? Like, mail them out to like 50, 100, 150 different places. And then he would have to wait for the no, right? It would have to come in the mail. There was no such thing as a text or an instant message or a DM or anything. So it kind of surprises me, if not, again, like I said, fascinates me when people try or don't use that medium to try to get them to the next level. And I think it's important for our company too. I don't think it's just important just for my personal brand. Obviously, I think it's important for our company. But again, I'm talking directly to the young talent out there. If you want to get to that next level, or really do anything, or have people know who you are, that's extremely important. Again, circling back to the people who are maybe talented enough to be at that next level, but aren't at that next level. One of the biggest reasons sometimes can be because they're just not willing to play the game, especially on the social media side. They're extremely talented. People know who they are. Some people know who they are, but for whatever reason, they don't do that extra little bit, that extra little bit to get their name and face out there that can potentially land them that next job, whether it be a dream job, whether it be something that maybe it's a step above where they actually are. So I just wanted to tackle that really quick, because I thought that conversation yesterday was an important one to have, at least between me and him. And I think a lot of those lessons still apply to what we do. And again, us as talent, and it's weird because we wear so many different hats. You and I do. You more than me. I mean, you more, with being running a business and doing everything all on the professional side. I mean, some of your vernacular that you use in the business world, I still don't understand, especially when it comes to, building and all the logistics and stuff like that. So you wear a lot more different hats than I do, but me, even as a content creator and, social media and play-by-play, like, there's a lot of different stuff that I do, and obviously public address announcing from time to time. But regardless of whatever position that is such an important aspect of it, is being able to have those conversations and then just kind of touching on these different topics. Again, I thought it was important for the people who are watching this show who are either interested in being a talent or want to know a little bit more about who we are, what we do. So those are important aspects of it. My last thing that I'll ask, I know we're into our last 10 minutes, but I wanted to tackle this. First, we have a comment from Jimmy. Real law stuff in my feed because my wife watches it on the TV in her YouTube account. Interesting. My for you is, I don't know. It's messy. Yeah. Don't watch the wrong video for too long, because then you're going to have years and years of trying to get back to where you were. My last question, though, JT, I'm going to direct this one towards you, because I know you were mentioning parents a little bit earlier, and that's obviously a big part of youth sports. With us covering youth sports, that's pretty much everything around it. And you've been a referee. I've been an umpire. We've had to deal with these types of people up front. But I am fascinated, and I guess maybe I got to give you kudos a little bit. Your son, Nathan, ironically enough, does not play soccer. And you talked about how it's in your blood, and you grew up with it. You played it. Obviously, it's everything that you do. Your entire business is wrapped around in it. But your son decided to play football. And I remember hearing that when I first came into the studio. And obviously I was pumped up because I played once upon a time. So that was really cool to hear that. But I always saw one of the biggest issues in sports being parents vicariously living through their kids. They played the sport once upon a time. Maybe things didn't go the way they wanted it to. Maybe they missed the playing days. Whatever it is, they put all of that energy into their kids to try to make them good at the thing that maybe they didn't exceed at once upon a time. And it doesn't always show on the kids' faces. A lot of times you can tell that they're just out there because someone told them to be out there. How do you, as a parent, not live vicariously through your son and support him in doing something that maybe you didn't initially think he was going to do? Because football is a violent sport, and you've acknowledged that. And obviously he's a little undersized, but he's a growing kid. He's not always going to be that way. But how do you do that as a parent?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was ever like a conscious thing. I can tell you from my personal experience growing up, I loved every moment of playing soccer. I loved every moment of the things that were available to me as a child. And what I realized when I became a father is that if we wanted to enjoy our time as a family, then it wasn't going to happen on a soccer field. It wasn't going to happen in a basketball, in a gym on a Saturday, right? It was going to happen, in Florida. It was going to happen, up in Traverse City. It was going to happen, all the other places. And so we have purposely not emphasized sports as part of our parenting philosophy. And it wasn't because we didn't want our kids to play sports. It was more along the lines that we kind of wanted to have our own time, our own family time. And, I just didn't want to subscribe to this thing where, like, we're going to put our kids into these environments, and then the goal became getting them into some scholarship program. And then, it just turns into like this whole, like, I don't know, almost like factory. And we didn't want that. And so, my kids over the years have said, hey, I want to do this. I want to do that. Our daughter, Brianna, who's our oldest, when she was a freshman in high school, was like, I want to go swim. So she started to swim. She'd never done it before. Right. And so watching her go from never really doing anything athletically to now doing this has been really, really fun to watch. And watching her every year just get better and better and better. Right. Where she medaled this year, in an event. And then, my son, who, he had been asking about playing basketball, and he actually wanted to try out for basketball in middle school. He did, and he didn't make it. And then I want to try out for football, and he wanted to do that he's like, Dad, I want to do this. And I was like, I don't feel so good about that. And that's probably from my perspective, just watching how brutal the game can be and how
safety
kids get
reasons.
hurt. And this year we let him do it, and kid did it was middle school football, so it's not as brutal maybe as a high school environment, but he gave it a go, and he had really a lot of fun doing it, and he had some mild success in that, and he wants to do it in high school as well. And our daughter Zoe, she's 11, she wants to play basketball, and she's actually the one who's shown the most interest in soccer. But I think now she's on this basketball hook. She wants to play basketball, but yeah, I mean, we just haven't emphasized it. And that's probably, to be fair, because also as a coach and as a referee and as a player, there's a lot of different facets and hats I've worn in those roles. And I don't want to live those as a parent.
Right.
So yeah, so I would just say it has more to do with the philosophical thing. The reason that I just don't want to give up our time, as a family, right. But that's kind of what it is.
You think maybe You think maybe America has a culture problem when it comes to parents in kids in the game of soccer in that way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. You know what I
How
mean?
in what ways have you seen it?
It's not just a parent thing. It is sports in general. This is not it's a systemic issue in all youth sports. It's not unique to soccer. It is right now in this country, every parent who puts their child into a sport starts to immediately think once their child has any success that there's an opportunity that kid could go play at the highest of levels. Why? Because they're watching it on Sundays on NBC and Fox. Oh my gosh, my kid's the next this. And they're thinking that at 10. And then some coach says, your kid is really talented. You got to do specialized training. So now you're taking your kid from one training to the next training to the next training. And it all becomes this, this, we're going to get our child to college. I mean, and, and nothing is against that mindset. We have kids who are paying $80,000 a year to go be at IMG in Florida. 80 grand a year to go play soccer or go play a sport at IMG in Florida. 80 grand, people. That's crazy to me. And maybe there's scholarships. I don't know. You know what I mean? But but look at this though. If you watched the King? It's the King. It's Will Smith. I don't remember the name of the movie. It's about the King, right? It's about the father of Serena and Venus Williams, right? And what he did to get his children prepared to play tennis at a high level, and he did it from the moment they were basically born.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are the most successful women tennis players of all time, and could argue that they're probably one of the greatest tennis players of all time between male and female, just based on what they've done, marketability, the whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. They've been playing tennis since they were 4. You know, I mean, like, what life did they have growing up? And now they have a life. Now they have a career and they have a bunch of money. But how many players go through all that and never get there?
Yeah. Yes.
That's
it's problem. Yeah. And I really want to tackle that on a future show because I think there's a lot to unpack there. And I think this all comes back to the whole, we talked about the pay for play, and we got a couple of comments in our comment section. I think it was 2 weeks. I think it was the first week we started doing this, but talking about the pay for play model in the United States. And the quote that I always go back to, and this was about baseball specifically, decades and decades ago, back when baseball was really the biggest sport in America. And it comes from Philip Wrigley. Baseball is too much of a sport to be considered a business, but it's too much of a business to also be considered a sport. I feel like that expands out to every single sport in the United States now, and specifically in soccer. There is this big money business model that means it's so much of a business, but it's also the world's favorite sport. And at its very core, JT, what do you need to play soccer? You need a ball, and you need 2 goals, and you need a field. You can make the goal out of PVC pipe, and as long as the ball is inflated, there you go. You got a soccer field, you got a ball. You got, thanks, Jimmy. You got what you need to play a soccer game. But I feel like at its core, in a way, maybe in America, we've gotten away from that because we've been able to convince these parents that, hey, their kids are going to go play at this level.
Who's convincing them? And this is the problem that I have. Who's doing the convincing? Right? Who's convincing? Right. Like my job as a high school soccer coach was to, again, find the best players that could give us a chance to win. So I would have to tell a player who was like their best player on their rec team that they weren't good enough on our pro. And I got scrutinized for saying you can't tell my child he's not good enough. Why not?
You should.
Your child's not good enough. I'm sorry. You can't tell kids that. Yes, you can.
You would rather him figure out down the line?
I mean, here's what grinds my wheels. Right, here you go. It's America, it's okay if your child's not good enough. It doesn't mean that they can't ever get there. It just means they're not good enough right now. That's what it means. It's okay. It's okay. It means, is a process and they're just not there yet. It is okay. But your child is not good enough. Hey, I would never go to a player and say, you're never going to get there. I would be real with them and say, you know what? There's a chance it's going to be really tough for you. If you want to get to this level, you're going to have to work triple harder than the person who's currently doing it. That's how that would work. Okay. And the players who are currently already there, they have to continue to work hard. Jerry Rice never stopped working, and he was the best receiver ever. right? So, and he was doing things that other players weren't willing to do. Tom Brady didn't take every summer off and stop playing football. Yeah, he went out for a couple things here and there, but he was playing football all summer long. Best quarterback in the history of football ever. You know what I mean? Like, so we subscribe this idea that, you know, well, just because I'm not there now doesn't mean, you know, well, I say you're not there now, that somehow that means you'll never get there. No. And yeah, there are coaches out there that will say some pretty crappy stuff. And I apologize on the behalf of all coaches ever that that's something that would prevent you from using the mindset to keep going. But yes, if your player is not good enough, I'm going to tell you that your player is not good enough. You know, I'm going to say you're not good enough. But if you want to get there, you're going to have to work 2 times, 3 times, 4 times harder than the next player because they are working hard right now because they want to get there. And that's what really grinds my wheels is when people are like, you can't say that. Yes, you can. I went through I kid you not, my first year at Groves back in 2014, I had to go through a session with parents because I told 3 players who had no business being on the varsity team, but because I was in my first year, I couldn't cut them. So I told them after 5 games into our season, because they were all asking about playing time, I go, guys, you're not good enough right now. You're not good enough. You have to keep doing all the things in training. And if you do those things, there's no guarantee you'll get into a game, but it'll give you your best opportunity. That turned into me saying, you attacked my children, and and it was year 1. I had to sit through like 4 meetings with 4 different parents about how I should talk to players better. And I'm sitting here going, this is insanity to me, Nathan. This is insanity. I'm literally having to defend the fact that I told these kids that they aren't good enough. And I wanted to be like, and obviously hindsight being 2020, this is like 10 years later, 11 years later, I should have been like, okay, so what, I'm sorry, but what club team does your child play on? Like what, like, you know, how many championships has your son, gotten? I mean, like, I'm sorry, what are we talking about here? Like, why are we even having this conversation? This is a varsity soccer team with the intention is to win soccer games. But I literally had to defend how I told a player that they weren't good enough. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're not, I mean, you're not good enough. And yes, I mean, could there be better ways to sugarcoat it? Yes, but I'm a firm believer that I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off than go, you know, that hurts worse. So, anyways, I'm gonna get off my what grinds my wheels. That will be a wrap on today's episode. Number 16 is in the books there, Mr. Wang. They're a good conversation. I think Jimmy said it was a good conversation. These are the conversations we're going to have, right? And sometimes I'm going to go off, and just like you are, Nathan, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Go off on a rant and talk about the fact that this is nuts. It's nuts. It's cuckoo. You know, and I'm not trying to say that to be disingenuous to anything in regards to mental health, because I'm not. I'm just saying, come on, moms and dads in this world. Yeah. Come on, coaches. What are we doing?
And that's why I think it should be its own conversation. We can definitely dive into that in future EPs, but I just, like I said, I just thought it was worth asking, because you as a dad with a son playing football now after growing up with your experience in soccer, I think it's pretty novel, the fact that isn't a big deal to you, that you're still willing to support him and cheer him on through all that. So we can talk a little bit more about the
talk about mailbag. I should do a mailbag of all the emails I have as a coach. We should I won't put like parents' names in there, but we should definitely do it. Probably do it. An email on the screen that says, you know, this is what an email I got.
How dare you?
So, anyways, that's a wrap on this show, episode number 16 of Inside the Game here on the National Soccer Network. Again, we were live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Roku. If you want to listen, you can listen on Apple as well as Spotify or anywhere else you listen to your podcast. For Nathan Wangler, I'm Jonathan Turner. You've been watching Inside the Game, and we'll see you here tomorrow morning, same time, same place. And we'll see you tomorrow. So long, everybody.